Joining us now, former Montana Governor Steve Bullock joining the conversation. He's the current co-chair of American Bridge 21st Century. It's the largest research and rapid response group in Democratic politics. And he's out with a new opinion piece for the New York Times entitled, "I was the governor of Montana. My fellow Democrats, you need to get out of the city more." And he's got a couple of warnings, Joe, for Democrats.
Governor, thanks so much for being with us. I can't think of a more important project. We've been talking this past week about Democrats whining. Oh, my gosh. The redistricting. What? How in the world? It's you know, as if aliens landed and were responsible for redistricting. Or, oh, I can't believe the jury instructions that were handed out in the Rittenhouse case. As if those laws just came from the depths of hell and nobody had any control over it. Every day in the paper, I read Democrats whining, complaining about things that are occurring because Democrats lost 1,000 seats. Out in middle America, and they can't win in places where you won.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. And it's more than just middle America. I mean, kind of what prompted this op-ed was thinking the morning after the New Jersey and Virginia elections. Almost half of the counties in Virginia, Democrats lost by over 70%. 45 of 95. Go back to Barack Obama, only lost 4 counties in Virginia by that sort of margin. So, you know, we've almost lost 1,000 legislative state legislative seats across the country. So the message really is that there are non-urban areas in every single one of our states, and Democrats aren't necessarily connecting with folks in these areas the way that we could.
Good morning, Governor. It's Willie Geist. Great to have you back on the show. Let's be specific here as we read through your piece and which issues you're talking about that you think are a problem nationally for Democrats. Some that people were talking about perhaps in that Virginia race or in the New Jersey governor's race, or they've been talked about more broadly. What do you think are those problem areas that a Democrat in Montana hears and goes, ugh, no thanks?
Well, Willie, I think part of the problem is that we don't even show up in a lot of those areas, and we don't provide any view of what could be done. Now, think about, if you go to rural areas, 1/4 of everybody living there pays more than half of their income in rent. Affordable housing is an urban area and a rural area our problem, but we don't even frame it in rural areas. Build Back Better and the bipartisan infrastructure plan, bill actually has some great things that can positively impact people's lives, but it's sort of that void of inaction. If we're not even talking to folks about how we're going to make your life better, well, then at some point, then the cultural issues that the Republicans in your earlier section, you know, that you had noted, then that's what will start to be a driver in that vacuum.
Governor Bullock, this is Eddie Gloy. So let's talk a little bit more about that. So how do you avoid the underlying implication of the distinction between urban and rural? We know that there are black and brown folk who live in rural America as well. How do you avoid that sounding like, let's stop talking about these black and brown folk in the cities and start talking about these white voters in rural America? How do you avoid that in this piece?
Yeah, Eddie, think about, 2006 to 2016, 80% of household incomes either remained flat or fell. Folks aren't getting ahead, so how you actually avoid it, and it's not avoiding it, is saying nobody's doing that much better in this economy. Half of America hasn't had a pay increase in 40 years. So what we ought to be doing is saying, let's talk about the issues like, look, whether you're urban or rural, right? Everybody wants a decent job with a little bit of money left over at the end, a home, a safe community, good schools, clean air and clean water, the belief you can do better for your kids and grandkids than yourself. But we don't even show up in those areas anymore. We don't even show up as a Democratic Party outside of our urban centers, even though these are folks that, look, they have the same aspirations as people in urban areas.
So is the suggestion, Governor, that nationally Democrat have gotten too progressive with their policies, or at least the things that they talk about? I mean, it's been said many times that Joe Biden may have been the only Democrat who could have defeated Donald Trump, and he did because he was viewed as a centrist on many issues and didn't chase Twitter and cable news and everything else. You write in the piece, I'd completely forgotten this, that during the 2008 campaign, we're just talking about President Obama, on the 4th of July in 2008, he did an event in Butte, Montana. Not exactly a swing state, but he thought it was important to go there. So what's your view of the party right now? Is it too progressive? Is it ignoring some of the concerns in states like Montana?
Willie, I think that, you know, to me, first of all, at the core of the word progressive is progress. So Democrats have to show that they're making progress in people's lives. And whether you're in rural Virginia or in Montana right now, you see about a year of fighting in D.C., not a heck of a lot happening. And that sure doesn't feel like progress or progressiveness overall and writ large. And part of it, like, let's look at the reset. Let's look at it going into 2022. Clean air and clean water and roads and bridges. You need that in urban and rural areas. That infrastructure bill has so much that is meaningful and progressive to talk about. We are taking steps when it comes to climate change in both that and Build Back Better. A child credit, or child tax care credit, which will impact 40 million Americans. I think that's progressive, but I also think that matters a lot in a lot of rural areas. Or you think of, you know, I've talked to parents where literally they're paying more for preschool than it would be college tuition. That's a problem in big cities, but it's a problem in small towns all across the country. The Build Back Better plan actually has in two years of a quality pre-K, or 7% of your income can go to child care. Those are things that I deem progressive, but I also deem common sense because it gets to the issues that families face sitting around their kitchen table each night.
Steve, former Governor Steve Bullock, thank you very much. Great advice for Democrats as they head into what could be tough times.